Welcome, everyone, back to the Let's Get Wicked podcast, where we are currently talking about nothing but the lovely tabletop game line Villainous from Ravensburger. I am your host, Joker Jonesy, and I am joined by my fellow friend, Headmaster Ditto here. Ditto, how you doing today?
I am doing okay.
You doing okay? I think the world needs a hug right now, so I hope the podcast somewhere with its like little itty bitty dinosaur arms is like hugging the person listening to the show right now.
Yeah, that's a nice idea, and it works great. Like dinosaur arms, and then if if you think the audience is a mouse or something, does that make sense? We're just all playing Ratigan. That's
Yeah,
the point.
we're all playing Ratigan. Yeah. Well, no. Remember, Ratigan is a rat. He's not a mouse. He is a rat.
Same difference.
Yeah, I know. I get it. It's all the same species. Well, welcome everyone back to the show. I hope you're all being well and healthy and having a good time playing lots of tabletop games during these weird times of the world. Won't spend too much time on that today. One thing I do want to get across as like a quick housekeeping thing that we haven't really talked about a whole lot, and I'm going to try to make this more publicly now on the show since our last recordings. We're on podcast services around the globe. So many of them. Believe it or not, we're pretty much on all the major podcast services now. So we're on Spotify, we're on iTunes, we're on Google Podcasts. We're on all sorts of little itty bitty ones. I can list them all if I had them all out in front of me, but I don't currently because, I was so prepared before jumping into this. But we are on podcast services. So if you are tired of listening to us on YouTube, we exist now on your podcast service. It is really weird to me that right now, if I went to iTunes podcast, the entirety of Let's Get Wicked is up there. It is very mind-boggling to me.
We're really in the big leagues now, guys.
I know, exactly. We've actually been getting some viewership on them too, which is surprising. So thanks for still listening, everybody, no matter where you're listening. But if you are listening to this on YouTube, just know that is now an option. And if you're listening on podcast services, you already know this is an option. But I figured I'd just point that out there for everyone to have more, the running theme of the show. And eventually I just need to go make like a sound clip of just me saying options in like a high pitched voice. But options, man.
Yep.
What is it? We talked about this on the live show, but we have to one day we just have to sit down on the show and talk about all the memes and the themes that we have now as running gags. So what? It's like Fate the Rat, options, bring back the bag. Am I missing any?
That's the main three.
That's the main three. All right, I got you.
For now.
Yeah, for now.
Could always expand.
I mean, let's just be honest though. Once we get into Marvel Villainous, I'm gonna be saying Marvel. It's Marvel, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know that's coming. But we'll wait till we get to the more marvelous times. Now today's topic is something is kind of stretching the boundaries of normally. We try to focus more on Villainous as kind of like our topics of our show, kind of speaking towards more of the game. Now we still are going to be talking about it in this topic, but I think this is something I wanted to bring up recently. Is the theme of burnout when it comes to playing your favorite game, no matter what it is. But I think we'll try to speak more to Villainous in this sense. And the reason why I'm bringing this up mainly is because, we have lots of people on our Discord server that, come and go. And usually when I talk to people that were usually pretty talkative on the server and they go away for a bit, they usually tell me the biggest reason for it is usually they're just kind of burnt out of the game per se. And it kind of goes in giant wavelengths where, there's a big huge news dump or a huge announcement and something along those lines, and then they get burnt out. And the thing is, the thing is that when you love something, sure, you go and you want to try to average it out in terms of how much you're enjoying it, because if you're going too much into it, you're going to burn yourself out. And instead of having like that constant of like, oh, I'm really enjoying this, you're going to burn out and you're not going to actually go back and touch it for months to years. And I just want to kind of bring this up and talk about it with the villainous sense of like how to avoid it, what maybe will cause you burnout, and how to kind of control it, because I definitely have not been burned out by this game, but probably, back in the fall, before we even started the show, I probably went through a small phase where I was probably playing it way too much and I need to kind of slow down. And even while doing the matches for the YouTube channel, I've kind of learned a nice balance of like when I want to record the matches and how many I want to try to record a week, and just, all that stuff to make sure I don't burn myself out on the game and still can enjoy other games. So, I think that's where we'll start there. So, Ditto, have you ever been burned out by a game? Let's start there.
Yes, I'm gonna start with yes. Thing about it is, I'm the type of person where I am kind of a hobbyist. So I touch on a lot of different things anyway. So while I do burn out on stuff occasionally, it doesn't happen often. I guess I'm pretty lucky in that regard.
So how does it make it so you don't burn out of it too often? Because I find myself usually in the camp where I get really into something and then I not necessarily burn out, but like, well, I guess, yeah, it is burnout, where after I get into it, I just don't touch it for months. Like you buy that board game, or you buy that new video game, or you get this cool activity and you're like, oh, it's really cool for like a week or two, and then you just don't touch it for, a year. It's like a gym membership. Everyone's like, I want to go to the gym, and then they're like, I'll go for a week, and then they're like, McDonald's sounds really good right now.
Right.
Yeah, but how do you control yourself when it comes to burnout?
Well, in my case specifically, I just give myself too many different things to do.
I got you.
So like, I'm best friends with my Nintendo Switch for the most part, and there's always new stuff to do on there between that and Villainous and looking around at other tabletop games and stuff. It's like I have plenty of stuff to do. I make music some on the side. I am always like reading different things. I mean, I set myself up to be a jack of all trades, specifically so if I start getting burnt out on something, I can switch to something else before it gets too bad. I
got you. It's kind of a thing I like to do personally in my life too. When it comes to the things I like to do, I'm a PlayStation nerd. I like playing my PlayStation exclusives. I play a lot of fighting games. I play a lot of Dragon Ball Fighters. I was messing around with Street Fighter V the other day. I like making games. I am a huge fan of making my own tabletop games. I am also a programmer on my spare time for fun because I teach it. So I sometimes will just make little dumb apps. I've actually, before the podcast even started, I wanted to make actually a true online villainous strategy guide before I completely understood what the wiki was.
Right.
And, there's something about making sure that you can balance all of that stuff without trying to go too head first, but you also want to be fans of stuff, because we're definitely fans of Villainous. I would say we're not just, we're just casually making a podcast about a game. No, we are big fans of this game. So it's not like we just like enjoy the game and just want to talk about it. We are in depth in the weeds. Now, when it comes to that, like, how do you make sure you manage like how excited you are about something so you don't burn yourself out too much? Because I found myself before when it's come to certain games, I can't think of anything in particular. I'm pretty sure this was back when I was playing a lot of PS3 games where they'd be like, a game would be super hype. And what would happen is you'd be super stoked for the game, play it in the weekend, and then the hype would burn out. Like literally just putting your finger on the candle and just taking the wick and just making it go away, where all of a sudden you're just like, wow, I just don't want to play this right now. I don't want to. How do you make sure that you manage your fan expectations when it comes to something so that way you don't get yourself too overboard?
Well, and this is actually kind of topical now that you mention it. Just about everybody on my Switch friend network has been spending the past probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 days straight playing Animal Crossing.
Oh yeah, I know the feeling.
Um,
Gotta give
and
Tom Nook them bells, man.
no, no, yeah, really.
Yeah.
But it's like if you're spending 3 or 4 days straight playing this thing, you're gonna burn out on it a lot faster than if you just spend, say, 30 minutes a day.
Right.
Um, it's a lot better, at least from my experience, to go into it kind of, I guess, being reasonable about it and not deliberately going overboard.
I gotcha.
Just kind of space out the experience because you don't want to blow through a game in 3 or 4 hours and then drop it because you're done.
Right.
You want to enjoy it more for the experience over the long term.
I gotcha.
Which, by the way, is why it took me so long to finish Undertale.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Well, I'm just trying
it
to
took me
stretch out
about a
the
year to
experience.
finish it all.
Yeah. I gotcha.
Just because I wanted to enjoy the game for the game, not for the completion, if that makes sense.
I gotcha. It's kind of funny why you say that, and we just had this giant Kingdom Hearts tirade, on our live show.
That's the one exception to this entire thing. I will never tire.
But even then, like I talked about how much Kingdom Hearts 1 is a very big part of my gaming experiences, because that was one of the games where definitely not blowing through the entire experience in one go was definitely super nice, because I remember spending days on weeks just trying to level grind and like trying to get enough like of the cool like special equipment and defeat all the special bosses. And that experience you can't really ruin, or like you would ruin that experience if you try to blow through the game in a few, like, well, granted, Kingdom Hearts is a very long game, but you don't want to go through all that in one go, or else you're not going to really enjoy the game, because part of that game is growing and leveling up and kind of building these bonds with these different characters. And if you're just blowing through it so fast, you're not really taking a time to step back and process why you're enjoying what you're enjoying. It's kind of like the whole mantra where people are like, when you're sitting and eating food, don't just gulp it down. You want to try to sit there and enjoy it so you understand why it tastes good. You know what I mean? That type of...
Exactly.
Yeah. So I definitely...
And I think that's particularly relevant for Kingdom Hearts, because if you don't sit back and enjoy it, you don't notice all of the subtle little like references and like the attention to detail that goes into some of those world designs.
Yeah. Like the whole fact that, like, what is it? Like in Kingdom Hearts 2, the whole map of Agrabah is actually based off the Aladdin 2 movie, isn't it? Am I not mistaken?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It absolutely was.
Yeah. Like little facts like that, If you just
the entire plot was ripped from the sequel as well.
Yeah.
With Jafar coming back actually as the genie. Like, it's just a cool little reference to something that if you just kind of blew through it, you probably wouldn't notice.
Yeah, exactly. If you're just sitting there just kind of playing the game for it to be a game and do stuff, you're not really taking in all the surroundings of what you're trying to enjoy. And, if you're just playing it for a game, well, guess what? You're going to burn out or maybe not complete it. That's for sure. Now, with this, I want to... Let's kind of wrap this into Villainous now. Let's talk about, Burnout with Villainous and kind of how to help control your enjoyment, because I love this game, and I won't go on my little tirade about how much I love this game again, but this is one of the games that I love enjoying and playing every week. And whether it's how many matches I play or whatnot, I always want to sit there and make sure that I enjoy what I'm doing, even if I have to spend an hour and 30 minutes to play a game with Pete and chuck the table a few times. I'm still enjoying myself. So I want to start with you. How do you control your love for Villainous as a game, and how do you make sure that you don't let it get to the point where you're no longer enjoying it?
The biggest part of that, and I hate to beat any dead horses any more than we absolutely have to.
Please do.
But not falling into the Fate War trap.
Yeah,
goes a really long way as far as not getting burnt out on the game. Because once you start getting into Fate War stuff, every game starts feeling the same.
Right.
You're either the first one to start the Fate War and you probably win because you're drowning your opponent, or you're drowning yourself because you got hit first and there's no recovery.
Yeah. I
Just
don't. Yeah, I agree.
avoiding that play style is probably the number one way to avoid hating yourself and your opponent in the game.
I found myself
Uh,
when we were going through that topic because I was playing with some people that are very Fate War heavy style. And one of the things I found was I really enjoy the very competitive aspect of the game. But unlike, I was playing with somebody the other night and, we played 6 matches within like 2 hours, which is insane. But when I'm playing someone that is like super competitive and doing the Fate War shenanigans, sure, we might be able to get through matches a little quicker, but I can only handle playing the game like that for maybe 45 minutes to an hour, maybe.
right.
Probably less than that. And it's not necessarily that I don't enjoy it, it's just taking a lot of energy out of me because when you have to play the game like that, you have to think on a completely different level. It's like playing a fighting game casually competitive compared to competitive, where casually competitive you're like, I just want to go play with these characters. I want to see what the cool stuff that they can do. I do want to win some matches, but if I lose, I'm not going to bash my head against the wall. If you're playing competitive, you're playing to win. So you constantly have to think about every decision. You have to go practice all the time. You got to learn every single matchup to the most giant extent. And especially as someone who's been playing a lot of Dragon Ball FighterZ recently, I'm just like, there are so many like matchup specific things you have to think about, and now with all these new assists and stuff like that, there's just so much you have to learn and understand that if I sat and just try to absorb all of that at once, I'm just going to burn myself out. So I definitely agree on the Fate War aspect, and I can personally say from my experience that was it was fun when I was doing it, but the fun only lasted for so long. And especially after the other night, it was very clear. It was like, wow, I definitely could play a lot more games of this when we're not getting super competitive. And honestly, playing casual Villainous has been some of the most fun stuff I've been doing recently, where I haven't been doing super competitive stuff. Sure, I'm playing Scar still and trying to win, but I'm like, if I get Hakuna Matata and Prophecy and stick to death, as long as we're having a good time while doing it, I'm okay.
Right.
Yeah. Now, I guess with that too, what are some other things? So obviously the Fate War aspect is one thing. There are some other aspects of the game that you've noticed that probably would help make sure that you don't burn yourself out?
I think you kind of brushed on it a little bit yourself, but just the idea of not feeling like you have to study the game to play it.
Yeah.
Not having to go into the super gritty, this is what this character should do in X matchup.
Right.
Kind of stuff. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, but it would be really easy to get kind of bogged down in all the details after a while. And as much as I enjoy messing with details, that's not necessarily the most fun overall.
No, I agree. When I have to get to the point where I'm counting cards in my deck.
Yeah.
That's where I'm just
getting
like,
that.
Yeah. I'm just like, no. No, that's not fun. This is not math. I'm not taking a math class. I've already done that. I won't do that again. I'm not playing poker here. I definitely agree though. I think it's weird because the thing too is like we're talking from one perspective and one audience. There's probably some other people that really enjoy the Fate War heavy, in the competitive, like logical nature of this game, and that's what keeps them going. I'm curious. I almost kind of wish we would have had someone on the show with that mindset coming into this, where what if they had that type of mindset playing the game, like how do they what keeps them coming back? Because they probably enjoy that side of it, but even then, just from a human being perspective, there's just so much energy that you have to exert when thinking like that. That's just like, I teach for a living and there's only so much I can do when I teach where I'm like, all right, student, I understand that you don't understand how this works, but I can't do this I can't basically spoon feed you every single second or else I'm just going to burn myself out. I've had to learn that as a new instructor, What do you think makes the competitive nature or the competitive players of Villainous want to keep coming back? Do you really think it's that super like competitive edge portion of it?
It is. It really is. It's a combination of that and just the satisfaction of, having won, just kind of being the best,
Yeah.
I suppose. There's not really much more to it than that.
Yeah. I mean, I do take some pride in me probably being the best Scar player in the Discord. I do
Yeah,
take some.
there's just
Yeah.
it's a matter of pride after a while where you've dedicated this much time into getting this good at the game, kind of rest on your laurels a little bit.
Yeah. Now, kind of going into the what you actually just talked about with the winning side of it. You know, I definitely can tell when when we were going to do the Ursula show. One of the things I did do was I sat down with our friend Aaron and actually played as Ursula a bunch of Ursula games. And let me tell you, losing with Ursula and playing matches for that long as Ursula definitely kills my mood. Now, not to bring Ursula back up into the conversation, but it just the fact of losing that much definitely was kind of killing me, especially when I wasn't able to kind of figure out what to do. We figured out some things when I was playing her, but it was kind of like, wow, if I played as Ursula as my first character in this game, I definitely would have not kept going. Like,
Right.
yeah, we on the learning show I did with Wero, we
Well,
actually talked about this a little bit. Where I don't suggest playing Ursula to begin with because you're definitely going to burn yourself out in the game because she's a difficult character to play. But how do you make sure that like if you're playing another character and you're losing, like how do you not burn yourself out? Because there is definitely a satisfaction factor of like, I do want to win. Do you need to win by fading the hell out of your opponent? No. But how do you make sure that if you're still losing, you're still enjoying yourself?
I think with that one, it starts boiling down to be a little more character dependent.
Yeah.
As a general rule, and this is just me personally, I think that if you can consistently, or like if as you start figuring out your character's deck and their combos, like pulling off those big power plays can be a really big help as far as not burning out right away.
I agree.
There's
Very much
nothing more
agree.
satisfying than playing Prince John for your first time and playing taxes and gaining 5 power in one shot.
Oh yeah, it feels good.
Um,
Yeah, that's a really
it's
good.
just those
Yeah,
little steps that lead up to something better, I think.
I gotcha. Yeah, I agree with the combo stuff because I mean, it definitely as a fighting game player, like combos are the bread and butter of what makes fighting games fun and satisfying to do. There's nothing better when you figure out like, oh my gosh, I can extend my combo and get this much more damage by doing this cool little trick that's actually kind of cool to see and look at.
Right.
Um, and I guess that goes back to what we talked a little bit about on our learning show of just kind of discoverability. Um, you know, Part of this game you will have to put a little time into is kind of figuring out those combos. And the villain guides don't necessarily tell you everything about that. Um, it does require a little self-discovery, so it is going to take a little time to go figure that stuff out. We're lucky that this isn't like a TCG where the combos are there and you kind of really have to dive deep and discover it on your own or wait for someone to discover the tech. This game is very like it's set for each character, and once it's out there, it's kind of out there.
Right.
But I definitely would recommend making sure that if you want to make sure you don't burn out on this game if you're losing, go figure out how to pull off those satisfying plays so that way you feel like you're doing a big swing and it feels really good to do. Um, and I, who would you? So you mentioned Prince John. Who's another character you would suggest if you're like, even if you're new to villainous, that if you want to pull off those big swing combos, like who would you suggest?
Um, yeah, Prince John's probably number one in that regard because he can do pretty much anything anytime.
Yeah, I agree. He's definitely a big
He
one.
never really feels like he's stopped. I personally, my very first character in the game was Queen of Hearts, and I had a riot.
Yeah, she's pretty fun.
Um,
I enjoy watching and playing Queen of Hearts time to time. I agree.
yeah, exactly. As far as some of the newer characters, I think once you start getting the hang of Gothel,
Oh yeah.
I think once you start getting some of those power plays, it can be pretty satisfying. And I think, honestly enough, some of the Scar power plays can be pretty exciting.
Oh yeah.
Getting double vanquishes in there,
Whenever
where
you
no
yeah.
other character can even come close to that.
No,
Uh,
especially as difficult as Scar is to begin with. Like when you can defeat 2 heroes on one go, it feels pretty good.
well, the reason I say Scar is he had like it's a puzzle to play him, but on the surface, like he's not that complicated of a character,
No, he's not.
really. Put down allies, long live the king out, heroes, murder.
Right.
Uh, I honestly feel like Scar might be a better starter character.
I think what makes
Uh,
Scar
to
easy
be
as a starter
honest,
character is that like it's pretty even like even though his goal doesn't straight up say it, it's like murder heroes. That's literally the
well, I
goal.
mean he's straightforward, and his entire deck is designed to forward that somehow. You don't have situations like Maleficent or Hades or Yzma where debatably some cards don't always fit into the mold properly.
Correct. It's all going towards his goal, and you like even now. Granted, you can debate Feeding Frenzy, but even Feeding Frenzy for Scar's deck has some utility to it when you're working against what the opponent can do when they fate you. So like, yeah, you're right. I didn't even think about that as a Scar player. I need to write that down. But I would say personally, so Prince John is definitely on that list of combo heavy characters. I personally would say Scar. I don't think I'm maybe as high on it as you, even coming from a Scar player, but I see where you're coming from. I would say too, Dr. Facilier is up there.
See, I would hesitantly agree for one reason.
What's the reason?
I think as far as like starter characters and the fun ones to start with, I don't know necessarily if Dr. Facilier I don't want to say maintains the core engine of the game,
I gotcha.
but the fortune pile thing and how you interact with that is a little out there as far as the core elements of the game. Like with Prince John, there's nothing really fancy about him.
No, there's not.
Just have power. With Scar, there's not really anything fancy, just murder heroes. Um, the only thing that matters with Scar is what order you do it in, and I mean that's not hard.
Yeah, that's not hard to figure out.
Um, with Dr. Facilier, though, there's a little bit more, I guess, finesse you have to get the game to play in your favor.
Right.
Definitely the characters like that break the mold a little are probably not the ones you want to be starting off with, because if you don't really pick up on it right away, it's going to feel worse
That is true.
to not get those gimmicks right. Like that's why Ursula is such a bad starter, because she breaks so many core elements of the game and it's not fun in the process. Like you're never going to want to play again if your first character is Ursula.
Right. Yeah. You know, I can't say it any better than that, but no shit. But you're absolutely right. I think another thing that goes with the combo ability factor, and I think this might actually apply more to Doctor than maybe the combo side, is playing cards that feel good to play. Because there is definitely something when it comes to any card game where like you don't necessarily need to do like play 3 cards in a row and like do all these actions. Sometimes it just feels good to play cards that and their effects were strong enough that they just feel good to play. So like with Doctor, I mentioned this on the very first show, or maybe I forget what show I mentioned it on. Friends on the Other Side, the artwork and just the way that the card is like how it operates is you play it, it's free, you instantly gain 2 power, it goes in your fortune pile, and you can kind of figure it out down the road of, oh, if I actually play Cards Will Tell, I can gain more power if I have a bunch of those stacked in my fortune deck. You know, like it just feels good to do. It's not necessarily combo-esque, but it also kind of relates to what I've been telling people lately about Corella, where Corella's big gimmick with me is the fact that it is satisfying to put puppies out on the board as well as capture them. It is one of the most satisfying things in this game. And even though I haven't been winning a lot with Corella, I think the reason why I keep going back and wanting to play her is just because it is satisfying to get those mechanics working. And she has the tools to continuously try to operate that as much as she can, which I think is super useful. And I honestly think that's one of the reasons why I like Radigan so much, is that Radigan's not really he's not really combo-y in the fact of like trying to like put out the mouse queen. He's a lot more like strategic, where like he has to try to play certain cards at certain times to prepare for certain things to happen. But when he's playing those cards and using their effects, it's super satisfying. Like Greatest Criminal Mind, like with the artwork and the name, and like if you have reference in the movie, it just feels good to play. You know, like it doesn't even do that anything fancy. You know what I mean?
No, but it's still, and this might be getting a little too meta, but it's a really good card in its own right.
Oh yeah, no, definitely it is.
Draw 2 for free is incredible, and nobody else even comes close to having that.
But it's the fact that it's incredible that's what makes it also feel good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's incredible. It's satisfying. It's really useful. It makes perfect sense for the character and the reference it's making. It's just a good time all around.
Yeah, no, I do strongly recommend, if you're feeling burnt out, is to make sure that like see what characters you're playing, and you might have to deep dive a little bit with the character, but like find the cards that you enjoy playing the most with them and make sure you can pull off those mechanics, because there's definitely like they made it so, you know, like even with Doctor, where like let's say you have a bunch of spaces covered by heroes and you don't have a lot of options to do anything, it still feels good to play those cards. You know, you want to be able to keep playing those cards and feel good about playing them, you know. That is what, and this goes back, I mean, not to, we can full circle a little bit here. I mean, going back to the Fate War thing, you want to make sure you give options to people, because the more options you have, the players can enjoy the game more, you know. You know, as soon as you start ripping away options from players and definitely detrimenting their experience, they're going to get burned out. You know, and Ursula is definitely the prime example of that, because she can easily get into that situation where you're just slogging it and you're kind of like, I just don't know what to do half the time. Even if Ariel's not out, that's one of my things I've recently learned when I played Ursula, is the fact that even if Ariel's not out on the board, if you just start playing heroes, you know, she just starts getting destroyed, and you're just not having fun.
I mean, early Ariel is a huge benefit to Ursula. Late Ariel, it's curtains.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, you may as well be like, all right, I'm done. I'll forfeit. White flag. I'm done.
Pretty much. What I'll throw out here for Villainous Burnout is do what he said. Take kind of an inventory of which cards in your character's deck that you do like, and then compare it to cards or like similar cards from other characters.
Yeah. I agree.
Because you may find that one of those other characters may use it well.
Yeah. And maybe more satisfying too. You know,
or
what I mean?
Like a certain mechanic. So like you may not enjoy Ursula because she doesn't vanquish heroes normally, but Evil Queen has a special vanquish mechanic too.
Yeah.
So you might like that instead.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same kind of gimmick. And even like with characters who have to like acquire items, you know, like let's say you started off with Jafar and you don't necessarily, you don't like hunting so much. Maybe you'll like Dr. Facilier instead, you know? Right. It's that type of thing where you cross compare and see. Because I mean, I actually just posted this on the Discord today where people were talking about, you know, speculating characters and what characters they would like. And just like what I said on the live show where, you know, I don't care what characters come in as long as they have interesting gimmicks and mechanics that I think are going to be fun and satisfying to do. And Radigan's the perfect example of, I never saw The Great Mouse Detective before the game. And, you know, playing the character itself, things just felt satisfying to do. And then watching the movie after playing the character, everything kind of clicked and made sense and just made some things more satisfying to do. Let me tell you, playing Bartholomew and then playing Felicia afterwards, it just feels right. You know, you feel like a bad guy. It doesn't get any better than that. But yeah. What was it? I lost my train of thought because you had a really good point, and then I lost my brain. When it comes to characters and stuff, not characters. So one of the things that we do on the channel when we record our matches is usually when I play with Ditto and I go like maybe 3, 4, depending on the night, matches in a row. How many, like, we also don't do that every single day. Sometimes we might do it a few days in a row, but if you really enjoy Villainous or even any type of game, like, what would you suggest, like, how many games do you play in a row? How many days of the week should you play it? To make sure that you space out your experience so that way you're not playing too much.
I don't know. It depends on, I guess, how competitive you are. If you're going to be a more casual player, probably 2 or 3 times a week for, like, I don't know, just a few rounds is probably good enough to enjoy it. If you're on the more competitive side and you need more chances to really study it, probably a little bit more than that wouldn't hurt. I know there's a few on the Discord that are on almost every night.
Even I'm not that crazy. I used to be. Well, what's your preference personally? Like, what do you prefer with this game?
I usually stick to around, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 times a week for like an hour.
I gotcha. So basically what you and I do.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Plus or minus a little bit to get, character testing in, because I do a lot of that too.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, it's so I try to do the same. And one thing too, and this is definitely something you should all make sure you do, is, I know a lot of the matches on the channel are, mostly Ditto and myself, but you'll notice that I also play with other people. Playing with other people is also super, super important. Not to say that you can get sick of your friends, but if you want to keep the experience fresh for yourself, having someone new to the game or not as, or they are familiar with the game, but they're just a different player, definitely helps change your experience with the game, because someone is going in with it with a different strategy, with different ways to play, different characters that they're probably going to play, because everyone always has like their norms. I have my norms. Ditto has his norms. When Ditto wants to kick my ass when I'm playing Scar, he just plays Queen of Hearts. But no, I strongly recommend you play with different people. And also, especially, I know we play a lot of 1v1 for the channel, but also be willing to play with more people. I know Ditto has expressed like he enjoys playing with more people.
3 and 4 player games are so much different.
Yes.
Than just 1v1. It's not even funny.
No, it's incredible.
They feel.
Yeah, it's incredible how much different the game is when you're playing with just more than 2 people. And it's a lot more fun of an experience sometimes. Depends on what your mindset is. I know when I played with groups of 4 to 5 people, usually we've talked about this already, but it's very much like a social gathering of like, hey, no one likes Joker today, so we're all going to fate him. And then, I get Hakuna Matata to death, and Rafiki's got a stick and a prophecy on him, and I'm just crying myself to sleep. But, hey, it's still fun, though, because we're having a good time doing it. And even when you're playing with, like, 4 people, it's also kind of like there's a lot more to keep track of, but you're also still having a fun time with, like, 3 different people against you with 3 different mindsets with 3 different characters. Unless everyone's playing Ursula.
That game would go on for literal hours.
We have to do that at some point. We have
actual literal hours.
We would have to. We'll have to live stream it. We'll have to let everyone watch us be miserable.
Just be careful what it is you're asking for.
No.
Because if you start asking for it, then they'll start asking for it.
Oh no. Oh no. What have I done?
You can't back out.
No, I definitely can't back out of that. Well, but I was gonna say, 'cause I know you enjoy playing with 3 to 4 people, but in terms of the playing with different people, do you agree? Do you disagree? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you really just kind of need to play in as many different situations as you can.
Yeah.
As many, like, try playing around with 3 or 4, try playing with 5 or 6, honestly. Just keep trying new things. Keep trying different spins on it.
Yeah. I would also make sure that when you're playing the game, play with people that you actually have fun playing with. I think
Oh
that's
yeah, definitely.
I can't attest to that enough that like, I over the grand scheme of my time, I've played board games with people that weren't necessarily the best, and I don't want to be super negative, but you want to make sure that your atmosphere that you're playing your games in is positive. You want to make sure that it not only positive for yourself, but also positive for the people that you're playing with. Because when someone is bringing down the experience, then no one's going to have fun, and then that's the game that no longer gets brought out at game nights with your group. I definitely have seen this before, and it's always sucks too when it's one of your favorite games to play, and people and like because you had such a crappy experience because of whatever person was being a jerk, and I've been that sometimes guilty of being that person, and I've had to fess up to it, but. Make sure that you're being positive in the gaming group as well. Because especially with a game like this where like if you're doing the Fate Heavy War just to be a jerk to somebody, it definitely is going to ruin their experience. So don't do it.
It is.
Be nice. Hold hands. Sing Kumbaya. Don't be a jerk. Please don't. Be positive. We're being villains, but be positive villains. We're Disney. We're happy-go-lucky. We talk about murdering people, stealing money, taking over the world. We got to be positive while we do it. Now, granted, still, it's horrible. And then we watch these villains usually demise. I never forget when I was watching Princess and the Frog for the first time and watching the Doctor get his dues in.
Right.
I know you haven't technically seen it, haven't you?
I have not watched the whole movie, but I've seen clips of stuff here and there, and that moment, them.
Yeah, that moment is definitely a standout moment for sure.
It's probably up there as far as Disney villain comeuppance.
Yeah.
I always thought that the Hades comeuppance at the end of Hercules was pretty rich.
Yeah, that was special, especially when you see Pain and Panic being like, yeah, we'll just let him go. We'll just let him be there for a while, and I'm like, ooh.
You mean if he gets out?
Yeah, if he gets out. Yeah, that was a thing. Whew. Man. Sometimes I forget how dark Disney can be, and like you don't think about it until you're older.
And that's something that someone was mentioning on the server before, but like the stories that these movies are based on, they got whitewashed a little bit in translation.
Oh yeah.
If you've ever read the original version of the Nightmares Ensue.
Yeah. No, seriously. And even like I remember so as a Lion King fan, whenever you defeat Mufasa, just like you have to make sure you submerge the scene, where Simba's coming up to Mufasa after he died. And you're just like, all right, I can't think about that right now. This is a game, especially when you play Whisper. And when you play Whisper and then you go murder Mufasa afterwards, this like the artwork on the card to the moment, you're just like, oh wow, I am being a horrible person right now. Just straight up just being like, I just murdered this kid's dad, But hey, I'm trying to do it to accomplish my goal. And it was just fine. But yeah, no, this I guess the reason why I brought this up, this whole topic up recently was just because with, I haven't been playing as much Villainous as I want to recently because with everything going on. And I was reflecting on it because I've been burnt out on tabletop games before. And I was trying to reflect to make sure that it wasn't me playing the game too much. And it was not really necessarily the game. It's just the fact that, we're in a weird time in our lives. And I was talking with my brother who he's younger than me, and he's not necessarily going through a super rough time right now, but he's going through some knuppets. And I always ask him because I was like, I really want you to play this Villainous game with me, and it's really good. And it's like you play as a Disney villain, and he's like, dude, the last thing I want to do right now is be a horrible person, and that is my goal in the game. And I'm like, you do got a point. You do got a point, But yeah, I was just like, I was really kind of like thinking this over, and I was just like, and like even when I was playing recently, I was trying to play more like, I don't want to see happy-go-lucky, but more like fun villains. Like Yzma's been one I've definitely been playing more because if you watch the plot of Emperor's New Groove, sure, Yzma's trying to kill Cusco, but it's not necessarily like watching, Mufasa die in The Lion King, you know what I mean?
Right.
There's definitely a different level of energy in terms of the dark, twisted side of that movie compared to The Lion King. And I keep using The Lion King because that's the one I'm most related to. But there's definitely stuff in all of these movies that are really twisted.
I mean, Snow White's pretty dark.
Oh yeah, that
Princess
one's
and the
rough.
Frog gets pretty dark.
Yeah.
From what I understand, Tangled gets pretty dark.
Oh yeah, Tangle's pretty dark. Like
Aladdin has its dark moments. Like, you've got plenty to pick from, don't?
Oh yeah, no. And that's kind of, something that honestly be a really interesting topic at some point is like, we're playing this game is really fun and all, but like deep down, like we're being the really dark sides of these movies. You know what I mean? Like, and there's a reason why they use vanquish and defeat rather than kill in the wording.
Murder.
Yeah. Murder. I mean, because to my brother's credit, they're the games that I play with my family are usually like games like King of Tokyo or the DC deck building game, where it's more of just like some lighthearted nonsense fun, and you're not really doing anything super like dark. But like when you're playing a game that's really thematic like this, like when you're being thematic, you have to make sure when you're doing certain actions that they're thematic as well, and you have to keep in mind like the reference material. Like I can imagine someone playing a Scar and like playing them a lot and being like, I really am tired of playing this character because I really don't like the fact I'm murdering Mufasa. And that's like a whole scene that they have connected with their brain that they have to, relate back to when they first saw that, There's definitely some weird stuff that.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah. But yeah. Do you have anything else to say on the topic of Burnout, my friend?
Just if you're worried that you're going to, take a break, go play a different game for a while, try a different character, and don't worry about it too much.
Yeah.
Because worrying about trying to avoid burning out is almost as bad as burning out.
Oh yeah, totally.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, if you're thinking about it, that means you probably are, and you need to go find something else to do for a bit.
Definitely.
Yeah. I can slightly relate on that note because, I mentioned this before. My favorite fighting game of all time is Killer Instinct. And believe it or not, folks, when I was playing Killer Instinct back in my heyday, I was playing Killer Instinct for about 3 hours a day, every day. Every day. For about 3 straight years. No joke. And it got to the point towards the end of my time, I realized I finally had, done everything possible, but I burned out on that game super hard. And it's gotten to the point now that it is still my favorite fighting game of all time, but sometimes I get small cravings to play it again, but I can't get myself to do it because I just learned how burned out I made myself. And I actually learned from that while playing Villainous, because Villainous is definitely getting my Killer Instinct like spirits back. But I'm trying to, but maintaining it is definitely the thing I've learned from my experience with playing Killer Instinct, because I don't play Villainous every day. As much as I talk about it, maybe every day on the Discord, sometimes I also have to lay it back and I'm like, all right, take a second back. There are other things in life that I need to worry about, or other things I can find fun to do. And I can come back to this and still enjoy it. There's definitely some self-control there that you have to know that, 'cause I do love this game with a large part of my heart. And also make sure you don't let it control your life too. Cause I know that was one thing with Killer Instinct that I didn't necessarily make it control my life, but it was definitely like, people have to eat, sleep, and whatever. It was, for me, it was like eat, sleep, go to school, go to work, play Killer Instinct, You shouldn't make it something you have to force yourself to do every day. If you're doing that to yourself, then definitely take a step back and reevaluate yourself. Don't do that. Take care of yourself. Take care of yourself too, Ditto. I swear to God. I'm gonna come over there and give you virtual hugs right now through the power of the internet. I think we can all use them.
Probably.
Yeah. Anyway, I think we've gone long enough on this topic. Do you have anything else to say?
Just take care of yourself, guys.
Yeah, seriously.
We've come too far at this point for everything to fall apart now.
No, exactly. Yeah, no, seriously. Please, everyone, obviously take care of yourself in the real world, but also make sure that you enjoy the things that you enjoy loving to do. Because, you know, the worst thing,
absolutely.
yeah, the worst thing that we would want you all to think is that if you want to be a fan of Disney Villainous, you have to be in the weeds of it constantly. And I don't need everyone to be as big of a fan of the game as I am. And not to say that you can't be. It's more the fact that you don't need to force that much love onto something, or else you're going to burn yourself out, and you know, then you're not going to be able to enjoy it. And I want you all to enjoy games of all kinds. So make sure you take care of yourself. But anyway, I think we'll wrap up the show. It's a very interesting topic today. I think we went on many different little aspects of it. So thank you, Ditto, for joining me as always. I appreciate it.
Not a problem at all.
Thank you so much. Until next time, everyone, stay healthy, but also make sure you always stay wicked. Until next time.